Everything feels fucking insane right now. I want to talk about social media and what that's done to society and also why we're seeing this, I wouldn't say crash and burn of social media, but like basically, I would say the end of an era, kind of, right? We're already seeing the fall of influencers. We're seeing people called out on their bullshit, all of that. And even though the creator economy is said to be booming, right? I take part in it, right? I am a creator and I've made thousands of dollars being part of it. I still think that something is innately changing in the system and has been. This is not like if we flip the switch, but I don't think people realize how bad of a place we're in right now and the scary future that's ahead of us. So when most people think of the creator economy, a lot of people think of like MLMs, right? Like, okay, you have a coach who's trying to sell coaches on how to coach other people sort of shit, right? You have like the Avon girlies, which I feel like is what TikTok shop has become. It's like the QVC of the fucking social media world slash like bringing back the Avon representatives, right? The moms who are trying to make a quick buck selling you an eyeshadow, an eyeliner, or something like that direct to your door. It's kind of happening now, in my opinion, on TikTok Shop. Now, no shade to those creators. I think it's great because everyone can get a piece of this pie, right? Everyone can make money. And some people don't want to be a business owner. Some people don't want to be a full-blown creator and come up with original content and do all this stuff. They just want to sell things. And that's great, right? All power to you, especially in this economic world. But we really need to understand the lens of social media and like economics in general and even technology, right? What's going on now and what I foresee is going to happen in the future to really understand not only like how bad things are right now, but how much worse they're going to get. When you think about social media, before it became what it is today, which in my opinion is just everyone selling fucking something, social media was a place for not only you to connect with like your family, your colleagues, whoever else, but it was a place for artists to share their art. Right? Creatives were sharing their music. They were posting, like actual original content, not original content nowadays where you're just leaping off of different trends and using people's sound and all of that shit. Again, no shade to creators. I'm doing the same shit. But the thing is, we don't want to do that. We're just forced to because of these algorithmic changes. But anyway, going back, the origination of MySpace and Facebook and YouTube and all these places were the birthing grounds of sharing, again, like this artistry, right? Paintings and artwork and skit work. And I mean, all of this to come to a place of Vine. Vine was the original short form video sort of app. And the interesting thing with Vine, it was the first place that like stars were born, not through the traditional route of, let's say, having to go through Hollywood and all of that stuff. Now, I think Instagram around that same time was also having this sort of aha moment, but it wasn't quite the same level that Vine took on because of how quickly it shot out, right? How quickly it kind of became mini movies, if you will, right? I think the max was like 10 seconds for a video or something. So it became like an automatic reel of sorts, right? A portfolio for these people, these very talented people to showcase their humor, their skill set, their acting, whatever it was. And it was a great platform. I loved it. I still to this day, these things that live rent free in my brain about what was said on the app. But the thing with Vine is that it was the first ever app to really start to create brand deals and brand partnerships and this idea of an influencer. So I think Instagram was starting to get wind of this and it was starting to build up, influencers. You had the rise of someone like Paris Hilton, who was creating this thing called the selfie, right? Kind of this self-promotion and kind of that's hot and all that stuff. But I think Vine was the first app to really have this place where big brands could connect with these like celebrity-like people who had created something on their own. Now, something you might not know, the reason why Vine eventually failed is because essentially these creators, which they're the backbone of these apps, right? Me as a creator, if I don't post, if all of us decide not to post, the app is useless, right? There's nothing for these companies to feed off of. But Vine, what ended up happening after these creators, saw that Vine was sold to Twitter for X amount of billions of dollars, right? All this fuck you money. These creators then went to the owners of Vine and were like, hey, we've made you all this money, right? Because we're the ones posting on it and making things go viral and having these brand deals. And the other thing too, at the time, Vine was trying to prohibit creators from making money on the app, which kind of defeats the purpose because yes, they're there to share their artistry, but they weren't being rewarded for what they were doing, right? So they had to turn away opportunities versus creating them. And most of the time, if people are creating things online, yeah, they're trying to create them because they want to share their art. But if you're creating good art or you're creating things that move people, like the hope is that some point in time, your art can become either a side hustle, it can become something that creates revenue, it can be something that actually makes your wildest dreams come true, right? You just keep putting things out there and hopefully something bites if it's your chosen calling. So the creators at Vine were pissed off. the people at Vine who were running this, who just sold it to Twitter, were like, we don't really care about paying you. We want to keep this sales shit off the app. So essentially, they kind of tried meeting in the middle where all of the creators on Vine said, hey, you just made this massive fucking deal with Twitter. You made all of this money because of us. We'd like a cut. So each creator was like, we'll take 100K. We'll call it even. We won't monetize our stuff and we won't bring this up again. And you know what? Vine said no. They were greedy fuckers. They kept all the money. They said, no, you can keep posting. We don't owe you shit. And basically, the reason why Vine failed is because all of those creators ultimately decided to step away from the app. They're like, all right, if you don't want to play fair game, we're going to leave. So they left. And Vine, within 2 weeks, completely became obliterated, right? Because again, the whole point behind using the apps is to see the fucking people that you subscribe to and you like. But if they're not there, why the fuck are you on the app, right? We're kind of seeing a similar thing happen across all of these places. Although I would say, again, us creators, because there's so many of us and the internet and things like, again, a cell phone is so readily available to so many people, there's more competition. And so there's less banding together than there was on Vine. But the interesting thing that happened around the same time that Vine was having this sort of downfall moment was that ranking became a thing. So again, back in the day, originally on these apps, again, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, even MySpace, I think was still around at the time. If you posted something and someone subscribed to you, right, they followed you because they enjoyed your content, they would see it in their feed, right? They might have to sift through some stuff, but they ultimately saw what you were posting. And so what happened almost overnight, these companies, these mega, tech companies were like, hey, we want a piece of this. We want to make some money off these people. Let's change this to be algorithmic. Let's change this so that there's ranking, so that not only do people stay on this app longer, but then we can make more money, right? So they go hand in hand. So again, seemingly overnight, you have these people who had massive followings, like true fucking fans, to now all of a sudden they're competing with people and essentially losing touch with their audience. I'm not saying that competition is a bad thing, because it's not, right? It's healthy. It's honestly good. Sometimes it puts people in their place, so to speak. When you think about that and the emergence of ranking, and when that started, don't quote me on the timing of it, but I want to say ranking came out maybe around like 2016. That completely changed the landscape. We had to now play to this algorithm. So use certain hashtags and use certain captions and do all this shit to kind of finagle it to maybe by chance get seen. Now, the interesting thing is that people have over time said like, well, we should just go back to a chronological feed. But that's not a solution either, because if you go back to a chronological feed, you basically have to fight with each other to basically score higher on the actual feed, right? So you would be posting 24/7 in hopes that you would be at the top so someone would see it. But again, if you have these two rankings in chronological order and neither one is the solution, then what is the solution? So again, Vine was showing us the short form video could work, and that's how TikTok became to be. TikTok existed way before it became popular in 2020, but around the pandemic, that's when things shifted. One thing that's not talked about is not only, right, things shifted because these companies were looking to make more money, right? They wanted more people to stay on their app for longer and all that stuff. But people don't realize part of the reason why TikTok was so successful and has been is because of the For You page. And we know that all of us, even for me, I actually prefer the For You page at this point. I don't actually want to see people that I'm following. And it's not because I don't value those people or anything like that. It's because all of us from the pandemic to now are fucking fried when it comes to decision fatigue. So when it comes to actually looking at your content, there's a problem where we don't want to go choose what to look at. We don't necessarily want to be intentional what we go looking for. We want the algorithm to tell us what we want to see. And I fight with myself constantly about this, because sometimes there are things that it shows me and I'm like, they're pushing, I don't want to say an agenda, but they're pushing some sort of lens or some bullshit on me. But either way, I still enjoy it, right? And especially now more than ever, being a business owner and a creator and a freelancer and all these other things, like, no wonder TikTok does well, because I don't want to make another decision. I just want to rot on the couch. And even like things like Netflix, there's a choosing, right? You have to choose what you want to watch, right? I have to physically go and sift through things. And that's why it takes hours to figure out what movie you want to watch. We are literally so burnt out as a society when it comes to making decisions and having to process even what we're intentionally seeking for, that the For You page and the emergence of basically these apps showing you what you should be looking at based on your current life situation, your Google search history, what stage of life you're in, your age, your demographic, everything. is not only the greatest thing, but the worst thing ever. Because now all of a sudden, you say something out loud and all of a sudden you start getting fucking ads for the thing that you said. There's like a joke that goes around about women basically speaking into the microphone of their boyfriend saying like engagement ring, like wedding ring, like whatever to like, again, try to create those ads so that their boyfriend, plants in their mind that they want to get engaged or something, which I think it's funny. But when you think about it, it's a lot darker, right? It's a lot scarier when you think about like how often they listen to us and how often our feeds and the things we look at are sort of a reflection of what's going on in our current world because someone is listening. And I don't know if that's a physical person or again, they use AI, but that's the reality of what's going on in social media. Now, speaking of AI, this is where things get a little hairy that I don't think people really realize what's going on with this. So, with again the emergence of TikTok and it doing really well and being really authentic and people loving it, and I mean, even for me, it was a safe space for me to share authentically, and it's what kicked off my career, right? When you look at I was one of the early adopters. So when you look at what's called the adoption curve, every single thing in history will follow a certain pattern where it almost looks like a hill. Right. So you have the early adopters over here where there's not a lot of people. And then all of a sudden there's a spike and then there's a dip down where it's either like not as many people are using it and it dies out or like everyone has it. So its relevance is kind of like it doesn't really matter. So that can be everything from like Bitcoin, right? The early adopters who got involved with Bitcoin in 2017 when it was like pennies on the dollar are making a killing when it's trading present day at $50,000. Like that's nuts. Imagine spending 50 cents on Bitcoin back in 2017 and now you have $50,000. Like that's nuts, right? People took advantage of that. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, even early adoption for TikTok for me was the single greatest thing that changed my life. I mean, I was on it before Reels even came out on Instagram. My colleagues and I are all seeing this change in the landscape where us early adopters got involved with it. We benefited from it. And now I want to say we're at the peak or we're going to the downhill side of it because when you look at the adoption curve, you've reached the peak of it when every business is invested in it or doing it. Everyone's looking at it. It's when, people who normally wouldn't be on those apps, like maybe in this case, because we're talking about technology, older people are on it. The people who previously, a year, 2 years ago, or when it first emerged, were like, that's dumb, I'm not going to do that, are now on it and are also selling you a course on how to do it. That's the sort of reality we're in. It's becoming very fucking weird. I'm not saying this because I'm bitter because the algorithm is in my favor or because this or this, but because of the fact that number one, art is dying. The follower is dying, right? You can't see shit in anyone's feed anymore that you actually follow who you want to see stuff because number one, you've been conditioned to not look for those people. You want to see new shit, but also because the actual tech behind the apps don't want you to see it. But then the third thing is this emergence of AI, which that's, I think, the biggest problem of this whole thing is that when you think about AI, it started around like 2022 is when it became like really public. Right? That was the rise of ChatGPT. And if you don't know what ChatGPT is, it's basically an AI chatbot, artificial intelligence chatbot, where you can ask it questions. It'll scrub the internet better than Google, right? You don't even need to have the perfect phrase or prompt essentially to put in to get, results, but it can do research for you. It can scrub the internet. It can give feedback. It can give you outlines and solutions and all this stuff. And it's fucking phenomenal. I mean, I've been geeking out on AI since I tried to build one in 2021, but then 2022, the summer of 2022, ChatGPT came out and that changed everything. And now being in 2024 is everywhere, right? Copywriting for creating images for this and for that. And let me tell you, AI is the single greatest thing. I use it in my business. I use it in my personal life, but it is one of the scariest things too, because when you think about that adoption curve, we're still at, I would say, that early rise of the adopters. I would say I'm an early adopter of AI. Some people have never even heard of ChatGPT, or if they have, and maybe they've never been into it. And even though it's been around for 2 years and everyone talks about it, many people are very slow to adopt to it because, again, of that curve. But now that more things are becoming accessible and it's reaching different industries and doing all this stuff, it's becoming increasingly scary to see not only that we're now creating content to favor algorithms versus creating art or sharing things simply because we want to, but now we're at that point where we can't even, as humans, keep up with the fucking algorithmic changes and the way that the world is changing and how content is being perceived and all this stuff, that people are going so far as to use AI as opposed to their own human creation, which, again, I use it too. There are days where I'm fried and I still need to create a blog post or a newsletter or a fucking script for a reel or something, and I need help, right? Or even outlines for when I teach courses or stuff. Of course I use AI. I need help every little bit I can get. Now, it doesn't mean I copy paste it. I'll use it as the backbone and then I'll go ahead and add my human touch, my experience, and all that stuff. But not everyone's doing that, especially if you yourself are very skilled prompt engineer, as they call it, and you can actually utilize this AI tool in such a way where you have mastered it so that it doesn't sound like artificial intelligence, but it looks like a real life human is talking about this. Or in the more fucked up scenario, you actually create a persona that looks so fucking real, someone thinks it actually is a real person. So we're seeing this with cameos, we're seeing this with fake videos, we're seeing this with music, we're seeing this with everything. And that's really cool, but it's also really scary because, again, social media used to be this place of expression, and now it's becoming this place of not only is everyone selling fucking something because no one can survive on a basic income because the American dream is fucking failing, but also like people are creating things with AI to then sell to people, and people are thinking that they're looking at real people, but none of it is real. I mean, there are literal actual influencers who are not even real fucking people who are bringing in thousands of dollars every single month. There's this one, I can't remember her name, but she's, she's a fitness influencer. She's made with AI. She's got big tits. She's pretty. She's got pink hair. She's really cute. She brings in about $11,000 every month teaching fitness programs and all of this shit. And like, to me, it's so surprising because not only is it like obvious that she's AI, there are little articles about the person behind the creation of the AI influencer who talk about it. But then it just blows my mind of either like they've mastered AI so well that this looks so realistic that people buy it. And because they understand marketing and sales, which is the backbone of every single thing when it comes to, again, being an influencer creator, like you have to sell something in order to be successful, that us as Americans are, I don't want to say dumb, but yes, essentially so dumb that we're going to be paying someone who's not even fucking real. The world is getting really weird. Content creation is getting really fucking weird. And even now, as a content creator myself, it has been such a challenge for me these past 2 years to show up online and even talk about like building a business and doing all this stuff because I see everything is collapsing. Nothing is what it should be. Everything is just fucked. I mean, like, the whole reason why I even pursued doing Corporate Quitter, right, and actually doing content and having a podcast was because I was seeking out freedom. I wanted to get away from my job. I wanted to have autonomy. I wanted to have the option to sleep more than a couple hours a night and still get a workout in and spend time with my family. Like, these aren't lavish fucking things I'm asking for. I just wanted to make a good, decent salary, $60,000 to $100,000, not have debt, or at least minimal debt that I can manage with a low interest rate. And like maybe occasionally take a vacation, have a cat. Like my apartment didn't really care if it was lavish. Like I really was looking for simplicity in all forms, right? Live minimalist, like, and I'm not talking about being in the fire movement and having to like castrate myself when it comes to experiencing life and budgeting the fuck out of what I was doing. But I wasn't asking for a lot getting into this. I simply just wanted to have a good time and like make a decent living. That's what most people are looking for in their regular 9 to 5 job, which is not working. And even now in the creator economy, we're now seeing the people who were the early adopters benefiting in large ways, right? Becoming celebrities and writing books and attaining these followers and like, making this money. Now a lot of people are jumping on that bandwagon and things are getting weird. I mean, everyone's selling something because they need to survive. Everyone's selling something because they think that they can get a piece of the pie, which they can. I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy here, but it really is becoming a scary world, especially when you think about the theory, I think it's called the dead internet, where again, by 2025 or 2026, every fucking thing on the internet is not going to be real. It's going to be all artificially created, artificially managed, and we're just going to fucking consume it. We're just going to take it. If you're not thoroughly in this world and you don't see it for what it actually is, like, y'all are in for a rude awakening. Like this, I'm not saying to bail on your plans. I'm not saying bail on your desire to be a creator and a podcaster and a newsletter writer and all that stuff. I'm not. Find your chosen channel, find your chosen people and go with it. But it is becoming weird and it's becoming really disheartening as someone who's been here for a while to see how the entire industry has been flipped on its head and was what was once sought out as being a solution to the failing American dream through the typical 9 to 5, I'm now seeing being another failure of something that can't even become the 9 to 5. There's more to be said on this. I definitely have to dive into this more. I hope this isn't going to put a sour or bitter taste in your mouth. It's fucking insane where we are headed in the world. And it's been increasingly difficult to post online and play this game and all this stuff in the back of my head, knowing that things have been shifting. So I just want to say, brace yourselves, be curious, see if there's anything out there, an itch you want to scratch. Even for me right now, one of the things that I'm starting to sort of think about differently is, are podcasts really the thing anymore? Is Instagram a place to be, or is it still forever going to feel like a place that like is the popular girls table that I'll never feel like I should be part of? Like, I can't win there. So you got to find a place that makes you feel like home. And there are new things that are emerging, like Patreon and newsletters and all this stuff, that make it a little bit easier to connect to people. But until we see actual shifts between the relationships of these tech giants who own our content and us as creators and consumers, right? It goes both ways. We will continue to keep seeing this rise of obsessive consumerism, this push on capitalism, and all of this horseshit, just to try to convince you that everything is normal when everything is fucking insane. I'm super curious what you guys think about this. If you have any suggestions, any theories, if you have any ideas of what maybe the future is going to hold, right? What would be in its place if it wasn't social media, if it wasn't TikTok, if it wasn't this, like, do you think we're going to do a reversal? Are people going to go back to the 9 to 5? Is the 9 to 5 done? And if it's done, what would be the alternative? Like, I don't quite know what to think at this point. And I know a lot of other people are feeling this sort of pressure, this sort of internal buildup of what's going on in the world, as well as what we're seeing online. I would just love if anyone could share ideas you have or things you think, because there's definitely more to talk on about this. And I have to continually keep doing research to find supporting evidence to sort of, I don't want to make projections for the future, but I have a good nose when it comes to things pivoting and changing and knowing when the right time is to jump on certain things. And I haven't quite put my thumb on what the right thing is, but I'm slowly getting there. And I have a feeling I'll probably find out what the next thing is pretty soon. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. Would love to see you here. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find your way into my sphere again if the algorithm decides to play nice.